A cash reward of 131 crore is what BCCI has announced for this Indian team, which is absolute insane, and which is also something we will talk about, and a lot more in the world of cricket, even though there aren't a lot of cricket matches going on. Welcome back to Wake Up Cricket. It's 8 a.m. powered by Pavilion Picks. We will talk about everything that's happened in cricket so far. So let's get into it.
Well, yes, not a lot of cricket matches happening, but a lot of money to talk about. Let's dive right into it. BCCI announces cash reward of rupees 131 crore for India's World Cup winning side. Following India's successful defense of the T20 World Cup title, the BCCI has announced a cash reward of INR 131 crore for the squad. The board congratulates the players, support staff, and selectors once again on this historic achievement and wishes them continued success in the future, the BCCI said in a statement. On Sunday, India smashed New Zealand by 96 runs in Ahmedabad after posting 255 on the back of half centuries from their top three Abhishek Sharma, Sanju Samson, and Ishan Kishan. Jasprit Bumrah then dented New Zealand's chase with figures of 4 for 15 in his 4 overs. India won the T20 World Cup for a record third time. West Indies 2012 and 16 and England 10 and 22 have won the title twice apiece. India are also the first team to win successive men's T20 World Cups. No defending champion has ever made it to the finals previously.
Yeah, Megha, I was thinking about the amount of money BCCI has announced for this Indian team, and then I was thinking about, I'm sure the Indian players don't necessarily need it. With the amount of brand endorsements, with the amount of IPL money that they get, it's insane to me that 131. First of all, I'm sure it's not a cash reward. Let's get that straight. And a cash reward of 131 crores. I'm also sure that's not an actual thing that's going to the Indian players. This is very, very speculative, of course, but to think that BCCI has to separately announce a cash reward for these Indian players who already have so much money is insane to me. But I mean, it's something that BCCI needed to do, I guess, for the Indian players to go and as for winning as a reward for winning the World Cup. But I will be really surprised if this is an actual thing that takes place where the Indian players get that money. What's all the more interesting is these players went home for a couple of days, and then I think they had to fly to Delhi, or the plan got cancelled or whatever. And now they have to go to these IPL camps where
Hmm.
they are reminded that they get a lot of money, and they're going to play for the next 2 months where they do get a lot of money. Yet the BCCI thinks, I'm not salty about this. I'm very happy that the Indian players get a lot of money, but it's just that it's just insane to me that these players get 131 crore. Megha, I'm going to put you on a spot. Do you think, is this an actual thing where you think the players will actually get this money that the BCCI has announced?
Had it been any other athlete, non cricketing athlete, and had it been a state government, then I would have still speculated because we've seen in the past there have been
That's
instances
true.
of after them winning anything big, state governments announcing on their Twitter handle that such and such amount would be handed out, and later the athletes complaining that they did not receive the
Yep.
amount. And these are some of the top athletes that we're talking about. But with cricket, once the BCCI has announced, they have a lot of money, and whether we are salty or not, I'm pretty sure they'd get that money. And we've seen that over the years with under 19s as well.
True.
The
That is
people
true.
have received money, so they'd get money.
You might as well. Yeah, sure.
Moving on to the next story, then, which is on the compensation for the money that you receive, that is the fines. Arshdeep Singh fine handed demerit points for an incident with Daryl Mitchell. India fast bowler Arshdeep Singh has been fined 15% of his match fee and handed one demerit point for breaching level 1 of the ICC Code of Conduct during the 2026 T20 World Cup final against New Zealand in Ahmedabad. He was found to have breached the Article 2.9 of the Code of Conduct, which relates to throwing a ball or any other item of cricket equipment or at near a player in an inappropriate and or dangerous manner during an international match. The incident occurred in the 11th over of New Zealand's chase of 256 when Ashdeep fielded the ball on his follow through and threw it towards the stump, striking Daryl Mitchell on the pads. Ashdeep walked back to his mark without immediately apologizing, prompting Mitchell to approach him seemingly to confront him. India captain Suryakumar Yadav stepped in to speak with Mitchell, while umpire Richard Illingworth was also seen having a brief word with Ashdeep. Ashdeep eventually apologized to Mitchell after the over. Speaking to Harsha Bogle after India's 96 run win, Arshdeep explained the incident, just went to apologize to Mitchell. He said, my throw reverse swung and hit him, so I just wanted to say sorry to him. It was not intentional.
Yeah, if you guys didn't watch the final, which will shock me, or if you guys haven't watched the highlights already, what happened at that moment was Arshdeep Singh bowled to Daryl Mitchell. He hit it straight back to Arshdeep Singh. Daryl Mitchell was out of the crease. And as a bowler, you would normally try to hit the wicket, but I don't necessarily think Arshdeep Singh he cared where the ball was going. And it did go to Daryl Mitchell and did hit him. And Arshdeep Singh just walked back. The problem with when Arshdeep Singh walked back was Daryl Mitchell was so furious. He was so angry at that point. He could punch a wall and the wall could break. And he was walking towards Arshdeep Singh. Well, Arshdeep Singh didn't even look back. He just walked back to his crease. And that is when Surya Kumar Yadav stepped in and he apologized to Daryl Mitchell and they had a conversation. And then the umpire spoke to Arshdeep Singh. The entire bit was funny to me because of who the bowler was. For someone who makes the most random reels Instagram and the interviews that he gives, and like the interview that he gave after the match too, right? Arshdeep Singh is a character that I absolutely love. For him to tell Harsha Bogle, and he spoke in Hindi by the way when he said that like, I threw the ball too hard, so it reverse swung onto him, and I had to apologize to Darren Mitchell. I think that's the character that Arshdeep Singh is, and so for him to be doing all of this, to not apologize and just walk back, was very funny to me. And what's interesting is on Reddit after this happened, people were furious about us.
Yeah.
Like, or they were just angry. Like, why would Arshdeep Singh do this? This was unnecessary. But sometimes it happens. It was out of line, and but sometimes it happens at the heat of the moment. It's the World Cup final. He got fined for it. Arshdeep Singh apologized after the over. He apologized after the match. It's all fun and games. There was a whole New Zealand cricket board posted a video of them apologizing to each other. I mean, Arshdeep Singh apologizing to Daryl Mitchell.
Probably the pressure had already dissipated by then because it was clear that India
True.
would win. So there wasn't
Yep.
as much heat. But also the fact that obviously it being a New Zealand player, and that was there was a lot of outrage. That's why there was a lot of outrage. Had it been an Australian player or a Pakistani player, I wonder how the
That is
fans would have
very
reacted.
true. Yes.
Moving on, Matthew Hayden appointed as Gujarat Titans batting coach. This will be Hayden's first coaching stint in the IPL. Gujarat Titans have appointed Matthew Hayden, the former Australian opener, as their batting coach for IPL 2026. Hayden, one of the most dominant opening batters of his era, will join a GT support staff that includes Ashish Nehra, Vikram Solanki, and Parthiv Patel. He has previously been batting consultant with the Pakistan men's team. Good batting applies pressure, great batting owns the game, Hayden said in a statement after his appointment. That's a standard we want to set at the Gujarat Titans. Solanki, the director of cricket, said the appointment would help GT shape their batting identity. His experience at the highest level, coupled with his ability to mentor emerging talent, will be instrumental in shaping our batting identity for the seasons ahead.
It's very interesting to see Matthew Hayden take up this coaching role because so you would take up a coaching role in the IPL for a couple of reasons. One is when you take up the coaching role and then you would eventually want to then become the coach of a national team. But Matthew Hayden already has that in his resume. He's been the coach for Pakistan. But you would also do that to then become the coach of the Indian team. And it's a very interesting time in the Indian team where you have Morne Morkel, the coach, who's a South African player. You have Ryan Tendescarte, or you had Ryan Tendescarte. I'm not too sure if he's still part of the squad. But and Matthew Hayden might be eyeing becoming one of the coaches for the Indian team. If not, you would do a Ricky Ponting, right? You would do a Ricky Ponting or a Justin Langer, where you would become the IPL coach just to be the IPL coach because for 2 months, not only are you the coach, you have that in your resume. And if your team does well, you're part of that team. But you also, like we talked about in the beginning, you just get a lot of money and there's just so much involved. And being part of the IPL team or being part of IPL franchise teams or the tournament itself is a dream to so many. And Matthew Hayden's done that as a player for the Chennai Super Kings. It's great to see him back, honestly, as someone in the tournament and not just a commentator. Because as much as he is a decent commentator, let's just say that, it's just good to see him back as a coach. And I think there have been a lot of Australian players who have talked about how Matthew Hayden has influenced their batting, and conversation with him has helped. So it's not like Matthew Hayden's just out of the blue come into this role. There have been cases where the Australian players have talked about how their batting has improved. Talking to Matthew Hayden, there was a case or two even in Pakistan cricket as well. I don't think that stint went quite well for Pakistan cricket, but he's been the coach, and then him to come back to the IPL. I'm just glad that he's part of the IPL. and not as a commentator. As much as I like him as a commentator, Meha, do you see somewhere down the line? Do you see him part of the Indian team and him being the batting coach, possibly of the Indian team?
I think at the moment it's just art for art's sake because Indian coaching is obviously brings with itself a lot of pressure, but that's also a very coveted spot. Any of those spots, batting coach, head coach, and if at least say for the head coach, probably there are not as many people applying because of the amount of
True.
pressure involved. But other
Yeah.
positions, batting coach, bowling coach, they are fairly shielded.
True.
So
True.
I don't think it would be easy for Matthew Aiden to land up with that gig because in IPL we have 10 teams and all of those positions.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, as of now, it's exciting to see Matthew Hayden take up
Yeah.
a
That
new
is true.
role in the
Mm-hmm.
IPL. Moving on to the next story, which is on New Zealand women's team. Divine Bates and Tahuhu return to New Zealand squad for South Africa T20 Ice. Sophie Devine, Susie Bates, and Leah Tahuhu have returned to the New Zealand T20 Ice squad for the five-match series at home against South Africa. Devine, on a casual contract with New Zealand Cricket, was not available for the series against Zimbabwe, while Bates was sidelined by a quadricep injury. Tahuhu, who announced her retirement from ODIs, was not considered for the previous series for physical preparation planning for the Women's T20 World Cup in June and will be next available only for the last three T20 Ice. We're really excited to welcome back Susie and Sophie for this next block of games, head coach Ben Sawyer said in a New Zealand cricket release. Their quality on the field really does speak for itself, but what they bring to the group culturally is really important for us as a team. I'm looking forward to having them in the mix with some of the new members of the squad. Opener Georgia Plymouth, who sustained a shoulder injury in the T20 Is against Zimbabwe and missed the subsequent ODI series, is fit and back in the Emilia Kurz captain squad. Plymouth and Bates are the incumbent opening pair for the reigning T20 World Champions New Zealand. New Zealand and South Africa will play 5 T20Is as a doubleheader with the respective men's teams playing the night games starting March 15 at Bay Oval in Tauranga. This is the second T20I series for New Zealand under care as full-time captain.
Leading up to the World Cup, it will be interesting what teams do and teams find the way the teams find the balance in the playing 11, because we still know Sophie Devine's got it into the T20 format, and when I say got it, that's a bit of an understatement. She has all the experience in the world. She's still one of the best batters in the world. She's by far the best batter. Oh, by far, she's still the best batter for New Zealand. And we also saw that in the WPL. Except it will be interesting to see how Susie Bates goes about in the T20 format, because there's a lot of expectations from both of them in the ODI World Cup. Sophie Devine did get the result. She did score a lot of runs. In fact, she was the best batter for New Zealand in the ODI World Cup. Susie Bates, however, did struggle quite a bit. I don't remember seeing a score from her that went past 50, and she did struggle opening the batting. And as much as she's experienced and as much as both of them are the biggest stalwarts for New Zealand cricket, it will be interesting to see how they go about in terms of form and scoring runs and the style of which they play in leading up to the T20 format, because we know the Australian squad are all about attacking, and we've seen that with Phoebe Litchfield with the opening partner, and even with the Indian team with Shefali Verma and Smriti
Yeah.
Mandana. They have a style of play that was reflected in the WPL. Now, New Zealand in the ODI World Cup was almost caught off guard with the style of play. They were quite slow in a sense, as much as I don't like using that word in terms of run rate. So it will be interesting. I keep using the word interesting, but it is interesting to see how will they go about in the T20 World Cup. Meha, do you have how do you okay, again, put you on the spot kind of question. Do you see Susie Bates making it into the T20 World Cup? Of course the answer would be yes, but do you see that as a concern?
I don't really see it as a concern because of the amount of experience that she brings in. In fact, at the previous edition of the T20 World Cup as well, that they won, all of that experience did come in handy in
True.
navigating
True.
tricky situations. And one of the USPs was very meticulous planning, including that game against India, where
Yes.
after India lost, they didn't know how to make a comeback, and New Zealand were extremely buoyant after that. So, nonetheless, we have another story ready. So, I do see her as. As a valuable addition to the side. All right, then. So, West Indies players finally fly home from Kolkata on commercial flights. Cricket West Indies have made arrangements for the West Indies players and coaching staff to fly back home from India on commercial flights. The squad has been stuck in Kolkata since the team's exit from the T20 World Cup on March 1st, with the crisis in West Asia leading to repeated delays in the ICC's attempts to fly them home on chartered flights. CWI has confirmed that some members of the West Indies squad have already made arrangements to fly back. Arrangements have been made for some others to depart on Tuesday or Wednesday. The travel arrangements of the South African squad, which was knocked out on March 4th, remains as yet unclear. As is customary for both men's and women's ICC World Cups, all travel and accommodation arrangements for participating teams are coordinated and managed by the ICC. A CWI statement released on Tuesday said the chartered flight intended to transport both the West Indies and South African teams was repeatedly delayed. After completing play, West Indies squad remained in India for 9 days awaiting travel. However, ongoing uncertainty surrounding the ICC organized charter as a result of global tensions and aviation regulations made situation increasingly distressing. In the interest of the well-being and safety of its players and support staff, Cricket West Indies advised the ICC that it was no longer prudent to continue waiting on the chartered arrangements, which remain uncertain. Multiple approaches have since been made through CWI players and other partners in coordination with the ICC to secure commercial travel to facilitate the squad's safe return. It is important to note that some players and staff have already departed, with the remaining members scheduled to depart today, that is Tuesday, 10th March. In fact, today is Wednesday, so they would
Yeah.
have flown yesterday, and
Yesterday.
tomorrow, that is today, Wednesday, 11th March 2026.
Yeah, what an interesting situation, right? Because for starters, after the group stage and the Super 8s, when South Africa and West Indies had to go home, they couldn't go home because of the global situation. Except there was a lot of complaint and a lot of players and ex-players and coaching staff members putting up stories and tweets about how the England players, the England team finished the campaign after these guys, yet they got a chartered flight and they already flew back to England. And so why are the South African team and the West Indies team still stuck? Now, this is a question that only the cricket boards or the ICC can answer. I have no idea what's gone on there. But it's good to see them finally going back home, because there are a lot of people putting up stories and messages and comments about how they miss home, and rightly so, because a lot of players would have been in India since the beginning or a couple of weeks before the World Cup had started, and a lot of these players will also have to come back to India to play the IPL. And so they'll probably be away from home for about 3 months. So to finally see them going back home, now it will just be for a bit, and it wouldn't have been as an extended holiday as they would have probably gotten because of the teams getting knocked out. But they get to go back home, they get to be there for a bit, but unfortunately for them, most of them also need to fly back soon. So as much as I'm happy that they're back home, hopefully it could have been done much earlier.
Hmm. I think it can't really be compared to the England situation because England flew directly to London from, I think,
Right.
Mumbai. And
Mm,
again, there are direct flights to London. But in case of the West Indies players or the South African players, probably most of the flight routes are via the Middle East. And that's
right.
why that is the West Asia. And that's why the logistics were even more complicated. But
Mm.
with the players complaining, I've seen a lot of Indian fans take that kind of personally, but the complaint was not directed at the BCCI. There was not much that
Yeah.
the BCCI could have done or they needed to do. It was the
Mm,
ICC who are
true.
responsible for coordinating. And at the end of the day, when they couldn't do much, then CWI jumped in. So all in all, and also considering how busy the cricketing schedules are, even for the players,
True.
even for the countries that do not play as much cricket as others, there's still a lot of franchise leagues happening where their players participate in. So considering
Hmm.
all of that, these players get to stay at home for not too long. So them
Yeah.
complaining and also the uncertainty. Although the Indian team was also stuck, but they were stuck after they had won. And
Yeah.
secondly, and secondly, it was a national calamity, and
Hmm.
they weren't stuck for 9 days. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, and plus, I think the issue with the West Indies players was that they weren't communicated properly what would happen. So that
Yes.
uncertainty was an issue. Had they been
Hmm.
conveyed in advance that it would be 10 days, then probably they would have probably not complained as much, quote
Yeah.
unquote complaint.
True.
All right, then
True.
talking about social media and how it reacts and what's happening, we move on to the meme segment. And what is it about, Ashwin?
Yeah, there's so many people. I feel like after the World Cup,
Hmm.
first of all, during the World Cup, a lot of people were talking about him. Then even right after the World Cup, a lot of people were just trying to find one photo with him and the World Cup, until Shivam Dubey finally posted it himself. And I'm glad that he's getting the credit. He's getting a lot of credit that he himself is not taking. He's given what, a interview or two, and even there, I feel like Shivam Dubey as a character is an enigma to me. I don't really understand him, but him as a player is very, very crucial for this Indian team. And I'm glad he was able to step up in the World Cup. I remember a time, I think a year and a half ago, maybe even a year ago, a lot of people were calling for him to be dropped. A lot of
Yeah.
people were saying, "We have Hardik Pandya. Why do we need Shivam Dubey?" And Shivam Dubey was given a role and he was not in the best of forms and he was not able to execute well with the bat or the ball. And a lot of people were calling for him to be dropped and how he's not important for the team, how he's very one dimensional, how he can only do certain things against spinners, and when a fast bowler comes on he can't
Mm.
attack and all of that. And through series and multiple series, especially the Asia Cup, especially the final, where he bowled
Yeah.
the first over and showed that, hey, I've also got bowling in me. And then there was a lot of series where he stepped up, finished off the games when Hardik Pandya couldn't. And then during the World Cup, there's almost change of tone on especially social media where people start talking about, hey, Hardik Pandya is Hardik Pandya, of course, one of the best all-rounders,
Mm.
the best all-round T20 all-rounder India's had. But we also need Shivam Dubey and we need him. And he does perform, and he does perform in almost every single game, but doesn't get the credit. And that's
Mm.
exactly what this meme is about. How even though he hasn't gotten man of the matches, even though there aren't a lot of Instagram edits about him, even though he doesn't give a lot of interviews, even though there are no quote unquote aura points that he wins, yet people recognize his contribution to that innings, to that team, to in that match. And I'm glad they do, because Shivam Dubey had a lot of potential, and we've talked about this before. When he came to the
Yeah.
Chennai Super Kings, they just changed about his role and how he
Mm.
goes about playing matches in the T20 format, and the Indian team utilized exactly that, and they got the best out of him. And he also spoke post World Cup where he did say that I haven't bowled a lot, and that is something I'm
Yeah.
still working on. Hopefully I can contribute with the ball a lot more. And I'm happy that that's his mindset. Hopefully he does get a over or two in the IPL. Of course, with the impact player rule, you don't see a lot
Mm.
of all rounders coming into the mix. But has Shivam Dubey impressed you with his arc of just contributing, being batting under pressure, being able to contribute under pressure is what exactly what I said. But anyways, has he impressed you?
Absolutely. And in fact, I want to say, trust me, he's not a Hollywood hero because the face
Yeah,
really fits organically into
yeah,
that
yeah,
body. And it would
yeah,
take you a while to decipher that it isn't who it actually is. But Shivam Dubey 2024 was when India started considering him seriously as a prospect in the format. And
yes,
2024, the series against Afghanistan, where Hardik Pandya was injured, carrying that injury from the World Cup, and Rohit even gave him the death overs. So India
yes,
was trying to develop him into the all rounder that he had the potential to be. But there are two innings in particular that I recall at this juncture. 2024 World Cup finals, where India had a bit of a
yes.
stutter
Oh
and he
my
chipped in with
God.
that innings of 27 from 16 deliveries. Extremely important, pivotal at that
Hmm.
point. And this time around as well, although the victory margin was mammoth, but India had kind of lost momentum with that
Yes.
Jimmy Neesham over where 3 wickets fell. And in comes Shivam Dubey and plays that cameo and 26 of just 8 deliveries. And through the course of the World Cup, he's played a lot of cameos. In fact, he was good
Hmm.
with the ball as well prior to the World Cup. Somehow at the World Cup, it just didn't fall in place. But
Yep.
at one point, it was either Hardik or Shivam Dubey, with Hardik obviously coming in, strolling in, and Shivam Dubey filling in when Hardik was unavailable. That was the thought, say, early 2024. But the way he made himself indispensable to the Indian side, I think that's tremendous and remarkable.
Yeah, that's true. The way the Indian team realized that they could use both Hardik and Shivam Dubey in two separate ways, and that's exactly what's happened with the Indian team today. There are two international matches, one of which is going on right now. The first is the New Zealand women's team. It is taking on the Zimbabwe team. New Zealand has scored 300 plus, of course, and Zimbabwe have 50 odd for three. And then you also have Bangladesh taking on Pakistan. The
Mm.
series starts off today, is what I want to say. I know they have a match today, and I'm pretty sure the series starts off today too. So watch out for that. And to know everything about cricket and that's happened in cricket, tune in tomorrow at 8 a.m. on Wake Up Cricket, powered by Pavilion Picks. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe already, like, share, and everything. If you want to stay in tuned, if you want to stay in touch with the world of cricket, this is the place to be. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.